The air in the library of Alexandria was thick with the scent of papyrus and incense, a heady mixture that always made Arya feel as though she were breathing in the whispers of the past. She sat hunched over a wooden table, her fingers tracing the faded ink of an ancient scroll. The flickering light of an oil lamp cast long shadows on the walls, and the silence was broken only by the occasional rustle of parchment or the distant murmur of scholars in debate. Arya was no stranger to the library's treasures. As a scribe and scholar, she had spent years deciphering text from across the known world. But this scroll was different. It was older than any she had handled before, its edges frayed and brittle, its language a blend of Egyptian hieroglyphs and symbols she didn't recognize. It had been hidden in a sealed jar, buried deep within the library's archives, and Arya had only stumbled upon it by chance. The scroll spoke of the phoenix, but not in the way she had heard before. It called the phoenix the first flame, a spark of creation that had existed before the gods themselves. According to the text, this flame was not just a symbol of rebirth, but the source of all life and death, a force that bound the universe together. It was said to be hidden in a place where the boundaries between worlds were thin, guarded by those who understood its power and its danger. Arya's heart raced as she read. She had always been fascinated by the phoenix, a creature that appeared in the myths of so many cultures. In Egypt it was the Bennu, a heron-like bird that rose from the ashes of its predecessor. In Greece, it was a fiery eagle, a messenger of the sun god Apollo. In China it was the fenghuang, a symbol of harmony and balance. But this scroll suggested that all these stories were fragments of a greater truth, pieces of a puzzle that no one had yet solved. Arya, a voice called, breaking her concentration. She looked up to see Elder Thothmes standing in the doorway, his tall, gaunt frame silhouetted against the torchlight. His face was lined with age, but his eyes were sharp, filled with a wisdom that had always intimidated her. "You've been here all night," he said, his tone a mix of concern and reproach. "What have you found?" Arya hesitated. Thothmes was her mentor, but he was also a priest, deeply devoted to the gods and their mysteries. She wasn't sure how he would react to her discovery. Still, she couldn't keep it to herself. "Think I've found something important," she said, holding up the scroll. "It's about the phoenix, but it's not just a myth, Elder. It's real. Or at least it was." Thothmes stepped closer, his eyes narrowing as he studied the scroll. "The first flame," he murmured, his voice barely above a whisper. "I've heard of this. It's said to be the soul of the universe, a force so powerful that even the gods fear it." Arya's eyes widened. "You know about it?" Thothmes nodded slowly. "There are legends, fragments of stories passed down through generations. But they are not meant to be pursued, Arya. The first flame is not for mortals to understand. It's a test, a temptation. Those who seek it often lose themselves in the process." Arya frowned. "But if it's real, shouldn't we try to understand it? Imagine what we could learn about life, about death, about everything." Thothmes sighed, his expression softening. "You remind me of myself when I was younger, so curious, so eager, to uncover the secrets of the world. But some secrets are better left hidden. The first flame is not just a source of knowledge, Arya. It's a source of power, and power like that can corrupt even the purest of hearts." Arya looked down at the scroll, her mind racing. She couldn't just let this go. The scroll had mentioned a hidden temple, a place where the boundaries between worlds were thin. If she could find it, she might be able to see the first flame for herself, to understand its true nature. "I have to try," she said, her voice firm. "I can't ignore this, Elder. It's too important." Thothmes studied her for a long moment, then nodded reluctantly. "If you are determined, then I cannot stop you. But be careful, Arya. The path you are choosing is fraught with danger. And remember, the first flame is not just a test of knowledge, it's a test of character." Arya nodded, her resolve hardening. She didn't know what lay ahead, but she knew she couldn't turn back now. The first flame was out there waiting to be found, and she was going to find it. As the first light of dawn filtered through the library's windows, Arya packed her belongings, the scroll carefully tucked into her satchel. She didn't know where the journey would take her, but she was ready. The phoenix had always been a symbol of rebirth, of rising from the ashes. And now, Arya felt as though she, too, was on the brink of a new beginning. Little did she know, the journey would test her in ways she could never have imagined, and reveal truths that would change her understanding of the woe. My journey began with the rising sun, its golden rays painting the sands of Egypt in hues of fire and promise. Alexandria, with its bustling port and towering lighthouse, faded behind me, replaced by the vast, undulating expanse of the desert. The library, with its secrets and scrolls, felt like a world away, even though only days had passed. Thutmose had provided me with more than just warnings. He had given me a map, sketched on a fragment of papyrus, purportedly copied from an even older source. It depicted a series of landmarks, a specific oasis, a constellation visible only during a particular equinox, and a rock formation shaped like a crouching sphinx. These, he believed, were the keys to locating the hidden temple. The desert was a harsh mistress, testing my endurance with each scorching day and freezing night. I traveled with a small caravan, merchants heading south towards Thebes, their camels laden with goods. They were a rough but kind bunch, sharing their meager rations and stories around the crackling campfire. I kept my true purpose hidden, claiming to be a scholar seeking ancient inscriptions. Revealing my quest for the first flame, I feared, would invite ridicule or worse, attract unwanted attention. The first landmark, the oasis, was easily found. It was a vibrant splash of green amidst the endless beige, a place where date palms swayed and a spring bubbled with surprisingly cool water. The merchants replenished their supplies, and I took the opportunity to study the surrounding area. According to Thutmose's map, the next clue lay in the night sky. For 3 nights I sat beneath the vast, star-studded canvas, comparing the constellations to the crude drawings on my papyrus. The desert sky was unlike anything I had ever seen in Alexandria. Free from the city's glow, the stars blazed with an almost overwhelming intensity. Finally, on the 3rd night, I found it. A cluster of stars that, when connected by imaginary lines, formed the shape of a bird in flight, its wings outstretched. It was subtle, easily missed, but unmistakable once seen. This was no ordinary constellation. It was a celestial phoenix. This celestial marker pointed me southeast, towards a region known for its treacherous sandstorms and desolate landscape. The merchants, understandably, refused to go any further. I paid them for their company and supplies, and with a mixture of trepidation and excitement, I set off alone, my own camel plodding steadily across the dunes. Days blurred into a rhythm of sun, sand, and wind. The solitude was both daunting and liberating. I had ample time to reflect on Thutmose's words, on the nature of the first flame, and on my own motivations. Was I driven by a genuine thirst for knowledge, or was I, as Thutmose had warned, succumbing to the allure of forbidden power? The question gnawed at me, a constant companion in the silence. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in fiery shades of orange and purple, I saw it. A rock formation in the distance, silhouetted against the dying light. As I drew closer, its shape became clearer. It was a sphinx, not perfectly carved like the majestic monuments near the pyramids, but naturally formed by the wind and sand over millennia. It was smaller, more weathered, but undeniably a sphinx, crouching as if guarding a secret. My heart pounded with anticipation. This was it, the final landmark. The hidden temple had to be nearby. As I approached the Sphinx, I noticed something peculiar. The wind, which had been a constant whisper throughout my journey, seemed to be emanating from the base of the rock formation. It was a subtle difference, but noticeable. I dismounted my camel and cautiously approached, my hand reaching out to touch the cool, rough stone. As my fingers brushed against the Sphinx, I heard a faint sound, a low hum, almost like a whispered word. The wind intensified, swirling around me, carrying with it grains of sand that stung my skin. Then I saw it, a faint shimmer in the air, just above the base of the Sphinx. It was like heat rising from the sand, but this was different. It was a distortion, a bending of light. I reached out again, my fingers trembling. As I touched the shimmering air, a jolt of energy surged through me, throwing me back several feet. I landed hard on the sand, my head spinning. When I looked up, the shimmer was gone, replaced by a narrow opening in the rock face, an opening that hadn't been there before. It was an entrance, a passage leading into the darkness. The wind, now a steady gust, seemed to be pulling me towards it, whispering invitations and warnings in a language I didn't understand. Fear warred with curiosity. This was what I had been searching for, the gateway to the hidden temple, the place where the boundaries between worlds were thin. But Thothmos's warning echoed in my mind. The first flame is not just a test of knowledge, it's a test of character. I took a deep breath, steeling my resolve. I had come this far. I couldn't turn back now. With the ancient scroll clutched tightly in my satchel and a flickering oil lamp in hand, I stepped into the darkness, the whispers of the desert wind following me into the unknown, the entrance sealed with a crash behind me. I knew there was only one way forward. The darkness inside the temple was absolute, broken only by the feeble glow of my oil lamp. The air was thick and still, heavy with the scent of dust and something else, something ancient and indefinable. The silence after the constant whisper of the desert wind was almost deafening. I moved slowly, my hand trailing along the cold, smooth stone wall, guiding me deeper into the unknown. The passage sloped downwards, twisting and turning in a way that disoriented me. I soon lost all sense of direction, relying solely on the faint draft that still seemed to be pulling me forward. The walls were covered in hieroglyphs, similar to those on the scroll, but more intricate, more detailed. I paused frequently, trying to decipher them, but their meaning remained elusive. They seemed to depict scenes of creation and destruction, of life and death, all intertwined with images of a bird engulfed in flames. After what felt like an eternity, the passage opened into a vast chamber. My lamp cast a flickering circle of light, revealing only a small portion of the space. The ceiling was lost in shadow and the far walls were beyond the reach of my light. The floor was smooth and polished, reflecting the lamplight like a dark mirror. As I stepped into the chamber, I heard a voice. "Welcome, Seeker," it echoed, seemingly from everywhere and nowhere at once. It was a voice unlike any I had ever heard, both ancient and youthful, male and female, human and something more. I froze, my heart pounding. "Who's there?" I called out, my voice trembling slightly. The voice chuckled, a low, resonant sound that vibrated through the chamber. "One who has waited long. One who guards the path." Then, a figure began to coalesce from the shadows. At first it was just a swirling darkness, then it took on a humanoid form, tall and slender, shrouded in robes of what looked like solidified night. Its face was hidden in the deep cowl of its hood, but I could sense its gaze upon me, intense and unwavering. This was the Guardian, the figure mentioned in the scroll. "You seek the first flame," the Guardian stated, its voice now clearer, more defined. It wasn't a question, but a statement of fact. I do," I admitted, trying to maintain a semblance of composure. "I seek to understand it, to learn its secrets." The Guardian glided closer, its movements fluid and silent. "Understanding is a dangerous pursuit, little scribe. Some secrets are best left buried." "But knowledge is power," I countered, echoing Thothmos's own words, though now I questioned their wisdom. "And understanding the cycle of life and death, it could benefit all of humanity." The Guardian stopped directly in front of me, its presence overwhelming. I could feel a strange energy emanating from it, a mixture of power and sadness. "Power corrupts," the Guardian said, its voice laced with a hint of sorrow. "And the power of the first flame, it is beyond your comprehension. It is not a tool to be wielded, but a force to be respected." Then, the Guardian raised a hand and a series of torches along the walls of the chamber suddenly sprang to life, illuminating the vast space. I gasped, The chamber was immense, far larger than I had imagined. The walls were covered in intricate carvings, depicting scenes from various cultures: Egyptian, Greek, Chinese, and others I didn't recognize. Each scene featured a phoenix, but each phoenix was slightly different, reflecting the unique, cultural interpretations. And in the center of the chamber, on a raised platform, was a pedestal. And on that pedestal was nothing. I stared at the empty pedestal, my mind reeling. Where is it?" I stammered. "Where is the first flame?" The guardian lowered its hand and the torches dimmed slightly, casting long, dancing shadows. "The flame is not a physical object, little scribe. It is not something you can hold or possess." "But the scroll," I began, confused. "It spoke of a tangible force, a source of power." "The scroll speaks in metaphors," the guardian interrupted. "In symbols. It is a guide, not a literal map. The first flame is a manifestation of the universe's soul, a spark of creation that resides within all living things. It is the cycle of rebirth, the eternal dance of life and death." Then, a new voice joined the conversation, a voice I recognized if I hadn't heard him in a while. "It is as I theorized," a male voice echoed. I turned and saw him, a man, my height, with darker skin and a beard that connected to his hair. He wore simple traveling clothes, but his eyes shone with an intellect that rivaled my own. "Kairos," I breathed out. The guardian turned to him. "And you are?" the guardian asked. Kairos bowed slightly. "A philosopher, from Greece. I have followed the whispers of the phoenix across continents, seeking to understand its essence." Guardian turned back to me. "It seems the first flame draws more than one seeker." My mind was racing. The first flame wasn't a physical object, it was a concept, a force, a cycle. And now, another seeker stood with me. The guardian turned to the both of us. "To truly see it," the guardian said, "you have to pass the trails, together." The chamber floor began to shift and change, revealing a series of intricate pathways and glowing symbols. The trials had begun. The true test of our understanding and our worthiness had arrived. The shifting pathways formed 3 distinct paths, each glowing with a different colored light: crimson, gold, and azure. The guardian's voice echoed through the chamber, devoid of any specific location. Each path represents a facet of the phoenix: destruction, creation, and preservation. Choose wisely, for your choices will reveal your understanding. Kairos, and I exchanged a look. The weight of the moment pressed down on us. This wasn't just about finding the first flame. It was about understanding its essence, its meaning. Destruction is necessary for renewal, Kairos mused, his gaze fixed on the crimson path. But it is not an end in itself. Preservation maintains the balance, I added, looking at the azure path. But without change, there is stagnation. Creation, we both said in unison, our eyes meeting the golden path. It seemed the most obvious, yet also the most profound. The act of creation was not just about bringing something new into existence, but about transforming what already existed. We decided to walk the golden path together. As we stepped onto it, the symbols beneath our feet glowed brighter, and the chamber walls began to shift again, the carvings seeming to come alive. The first trial was a riddle, projected onto the wall in a language that blended hieroglyphs and Greek letters. I am born of fire, but I am not fire. I die in flames, but I am not consumed. What am I? Kairos and I debated, drawing on our respective knowledge of mythology and philosophy. We considered various interpretations of the phoenix, from the Egyptian Bennu to the Greek phoenix. Finally, I realized the answer wasn't a specific creature but the cycle itself. The answer is rebirth, I declared. The phoenix is not the bird but the process of transformation. The wall shimmered and the riddle vanished, replaced by a new passage. The second trial was a physical challenge. The path narrowed, becoming a precarious ledge above a seemingly bottomless chasm. The air grew hot and gusts of wind threatened to push us off balance. This tests our courage, Kairos said, his voice steady despite the danger. our willingness to face the unknown. We proceeded carefully, supporting each other, our steps measured and deliberate. The chasm represented the void, the nothingness from which all things emerge and to which all things return. It was a reminder that death was not an end, but a transition. As we reached the other side, the ledge widened and the heat subsided. We had passed the second trial. The third and final trial was the most challenging. We entered a small circular chamber. In the center was a pool of shimmering liquid, reflecting the light like molten gold. It was beautiful, mesmerizing, but also unsettling. The Guardian's voice echoed again. This is the essence of the first flame. Not the flame itself, but a reflection of its power. You may choose to drink from it, to gain a glimpse of the eternal cycle. But be warned, such knowledge comes at a price. Kairos looked at me, his eyes filled with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. What do we do, Arya? I stared at the shimmering pool, my mind racing. This was the culmination of my journey, the moment of truth. But Thutmose's words echoed in my mind. Some secrets are better left hidden. I realized that the true meaning of the Phoenix wasn't about gaining power or immortality. It was about accepting the natural order of things, the ebb and flow of life and death. To try to control the first flame, to possess its power, would be to disrupt that balance. We don't drink, I said, my voice firm. We've learned what we needed to learn. The Phoenix is not about avoiding death, but about embracing change, about finding meaning in the cycle of rebirth. Kairos nodded, a look of understanding in his eyes. You are right, Arya. The true wisdom lies not in possessing the flame, but in understanding its message. As we turned away from the pool, the Guardian materialized before us, its form less shadowy, more human. A faint smile played on its lips. You have passed the trials, the Guardian said, its voice softer now, almost gentle. You have shown wisdom and restraint. You understand that the first flame is not a prize to be won, but a truth to be lived. Then, the chamber began to shake. The walls cracked and the ceiling started to collapse. The temple is returning to the sands, the Guardian said. It is time for you to leave. The Guardian pointed to a section of the wall which shimmered and dissolved, revealing a passage leading upwards. Go now, the Guardian urged, and carry the message of the Phoenix with you. Kairos and I didn't hesitate. We ran through the passage, the temple crumbling around us. We emerged into the blinding sunlight, the desert wind whipping around us, the entrance sealed behind us, the Sphinx once again a silent sentinel, its secret hidden once more. We made our way back to civilization, our journey forever etched in our memories. I returned to Alexandria, a changed woman. I shared my findings with Thothmes, who listened with a mixture of pride and relief. You have done well, Arya, he said, his eyes twinkling. You have uncovered a great truth, and you have resisted the temptation of power. That is the mark of a true scholar. I continued my studies, but my focus shifted. I became less interested in acquiring knowledge for its own sake, and more interested in understanding the deeper meaning behind the myths and legends of the world. I dedicated my life to preserving and interpreting ancient texts, sharing the wisdom of the Phoenix with all who would listen. Kairos returned to Greece, inspired to write a philosophical treatise on the nature of rebirth. Drawing on his experiences in the hidden temple, he became a renowned philosopher, his teachings echoing the message of the Phoenix, that change is the only constant, and that true life lies in embracing the eternal cycle. As I closed the ancient scroll many years later, my fingers traced a symbol on the final page, a symbol I had seen on the temple wall, a circle with a bird in flight within it. It was a symbol of the Phoenix, but it was also something more. It was a reminder that the journey of discovery never truly ends, that there are always new mysteries to uncover, new truths to be revealed. And as I contemplated this truth, I realized the Phoenix, that great symbol, is a representation of the universe, constantly dying and being born anew. And perhaps, I thought, there were other mythical creatures, other symbols that held similar clues to the secrets of the cosmos. Perhaps this was just the beginning of a much larger quest, a quest that would continue for generations to come. The cycle, after all, was eternal.